Welcome to our Rosemary Kennedy Initiative Internship Information Session. I'm Windsor Taylor, the Access VSA Programmer at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington, D.C. I'm excited to share a bit more about a variety of positions available this spring for people with disabilities. Before we continue, I will quickly note that the content of this program was developed under grant number H421F240164 from the U.S. Department of Education. However, the content of this program does not necessarily represent the policy of the Department of Education, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal government. I'll give a quick overview of today's session. First, we'll focus on the particulars of the Rosemary Kennedy Initiative, or RKI program. Then we'll review the positions available this spring and the characteristics of an ideal candidate for each position before we end by answering any questions you may have about these opportunities. The Rosemary Kennedy Initiative, or RKI program, is a seasonal internship opportunity open to individuals with documented disabilities ages 18 plus. We use the Americans with Disabilities Act as our guide for the definition of disability. Disability is a broad umbrella that covers a variety of lived experiences. Eligible candidates may have apparent, physical, and/or sensory conditions, as well as less apparent conditions like anxiety, ADHD, depression, chronic illness or pain, PTSD, OCD, dyslexia, dysgraphia, neurodivergence, and more. RKI interns will work 20 hours per week from January 12th through June 28th, receiving $17.95 per hour, which is DC's minimum wage. And they may elect to receive up to an additional $200 per month as a travel stipend. In addition to hands-on work experience, interns engage in a variety of professional development workshops, networking events, and even field trips to other cultural institutions in the DC area. Applications are due Friday, October 24th. We'll drop the link to the application in the chat now. Interviews will occur with select candidates November 7th and November 10th through 12th. Ushers Services exclusively conducts in-person interviews. Campus Rentals and Sales and Multimedia may offer a variety of interview options. Let's chat a bit more about the three departments hosting RKI interns this spring. Campus Rentals and Sales and Multimedia will each host one intern. Usher Services will host up to 10 interns. You can read a position description for each of these opportunities via our website. We'll put the link to the web page in the chat now. I'll share a bit more about each department. Campus Rentals and Sales engages with clients who rent space at the Kennedy Center to host events. These events include personal celebrations like weddings and bar mitzvahs, as well as corporate meetings and even artistic performances. This team meets with clients who approach the center about renting space and also works to build new connections with potential rental clients. The sales team most often works during standard business hours, but they occasionally work evenings and weekends too. The multimedia team tells the story of the Kennedy Center through digital assets. This department includes executive producers, camera operators, editors, and more. They capture live performances and tell the story of the depth and breadth of the Kennedy Center on television, social media, and through email campaigns. Multimedia mostly works during standard business hours, but it is not uncommon for them to be on-site evenings and weekends as well. Usher Services are the frontline workers of the Kennedy Center. Ushers welcome guests into our spaces, providing hospitality and care. Ushers help with general wayfinding, escort patrons to their seat, and assist with safety measures. Since the majority of the positions this spring are in usher services, we'll share a bit more about this department. Usher Services is an incredibly diverse team with over 370 team members, ranging in ages from 18 to 98. Interns from all walks of life will easily fit within this group. While folks often think of theater ushers first, those are the people who help you find your seats for a performance. Ushers at the Kennedy Center also help with wayfinding across the building for a wide variety of events. In general, ushers are scheduled for shifts that last 3 to 4 hours. They arrive on site an hour before the performance or event begins. After putting on their uniform, they attend a briefing from the head usher and begin their work with the public. Let's now turn our attention to the characteristics and qualifications for each of the RKI positions available this spring. Candidates interested in campus rentals and sales should be passionate about customer service and comfortable talking to people that they do not know. Ideal candidates will have excellent communication skills and be exceptionally organized. Interns who complete this opportunity will be well positioned to work in sales and events management. Candidates interested in the multimedia position must have a functional understanding of camera operations and video editing. Experience in Adobe Premiere and Photoshop are a huge plus. This position is ideal for individuals developing skills in digital communications, photography, film, and video production. Candidates interested in usher services should be enthusiastic about working with folks of all ages. Ushers must be comfortable working in busy spaces with variable sound and light levels. Folks interested in customer service and keen to build problem-solving skills are well positioned for this role. Ushers mostly work when performances occur, so individuals interested in this role must be available evenings and weekends. Typical shifts occur on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Now it's your turn. Please use the Q&A function of the platform or the chat to add any questions you have. I will read the questions aloud before providing an answer. Okay, we've got some questions coming in. I'll take them in stride and read them aloud. The first question is, what will happen on the interview dates in November? So for the ushers services positions, those folks that are interviewing for that role will first engage in a tour around the building so that you can see some of the different types of spaces that you might be working in. And then there will be a one-on-one interview with the head of usher services. This interview will be quite brief. It's about 3 questions, and it's just a little bit more about getting to know the candidate and how this role might fit with their goals. For campus rentals and sales, and for the multimedia position, those interviews will last about 30 minutes per individual. I believe there will be options for them to be virtual as well as in person, but I should state that all the work itself in the spring does occur on site at the Kennedy Center. But those particular interviews will get to know the candidate's skill set, because as you read in the position descriptions, there is a bit more of a requirement for particular understanding in certain systems or softwares. And so those interviews will explore that with the candidate and help everyone decide if it's a good fit. Okay. So I have a question here. Will out-of-state applicants be seriously considered if personal living options in the DC area are available? Absolutely. We've had interns in the past who have come to work with us in the summer, and they come and they live with their aunt or their uncle who, lives in the DC area, and they're able to commute daily to the Kennedy Center. So there's 20 hours per week. That's probably about 4 shifts. So in order to be seriously considered, the candidate does have to be able to be in the DC area and be able to reliably commute to the center at least 4 days a week. So yes. Another question here, do we have a location in New York? Unfortunately, we do not. However, the Kennedy Center is located in DC. However, that said, there are other apprenticeship and internship opportunities available through the grant that I mentioned at the beginning of this session. So feel free to send us a note. You'll get my contact information at the end, and I can work to connect you with those other opportunities that might be closer to you in New York. All right, let's see, we've got a couple other questions coming in here. I'm leaving for a summer term abroad on May 30th. Can I participate? Well, first of all, congratulations. That's exciting. Unfortunately, keep an eye on future opportunities at the center. In order to be eligible, folks must be able to complete the entire term, which is January 12th through June 28th. You mentioned needing a documented disability. Is this a doctor's note, and when do I provide this? Excellent question. So, because of the terms of the grant, we do have to ensure that folks are eligible to participate in the program. And eligibility is required the right to work in the United States. That's like your I-9 verification form for any sort of job. And then proof of a documented disability. This could be a letter from your doctor or your therapist. It could be an individualized education plan that you had while you were in school. It could be a letter from vocational rehabilitation where you've engaged in their services. There's a wide variety of documentation that counts for that, and we'll assist you in helping make sure that you know what those options are. We collect that information after the interviews, but before final hiring decisions are made, because again, we have to make sure folks are eligible for the program. What types of workshops are offered to interns, and are these included in the 20 hours per week on site? First of all, yes, all activities associated with this program that are required. So the shifts that interns will work on site, the workshops that they will engage in, networking opportunities, field trips to other cultural institutions, all of that is paid working time. And the types of workshops we anticipate offering in the spring will include things like resume, writing and cover letter, mock interviews, but it will also include kind of career exploration. So we intend to bring in folks who have cultural careers across the Kennedy Center, but also outside of the Kennedy Center, so that folks have a better sense of what the options are that are out there and how some of the skills that they're building might help them obtain competitive employment in the cultural sector. Let's see, when will we hear back? That's a great question. So we will endeavor to let everybody know their status by the end of November. So we do intend to let everybody know one way or the other, and we will let you know as soon as we possibly can. But I would anticipate the end of November. Reads here, I have a client with an intellectual disability. Can they be part of this program? Absolutely, yes. The eligibility requirement for the Rosemary Kennedy Initiative is any documented disability. Let's see. I recently lost my job and I'm looking to transition to an arts career, but I'm not enrolled in school. Can I participate in this program? First of all, I'm really sorry to hear that you've lost your job, but welcome to the wild, crazy world of the arts. That's an exciting career transition. There is no requirement to be enrolled in an educational program to participate in this opportunity. We anticipate having folks who are doing career transitions, much like you. It's 18 plus, so we could have folks who are 18 or 25 or 40 or 60 who are interested in building skills to enter the workforce and be available for full-time employment in the future. What do I have to wear? Always an important question. So I assume you mentioned or this is referring to, I mentioned a uniform. So our ushers are required to wear a uniform for their shifts. The Kennedy Center provides the blazer, so it's a particular kind of red colored blazer, and either a bow tie or an ascot. The individual gets to pick which one they prefer. So the Kennedy Center provides that, but the usher, in this case the intern usher, does have to provide black slacks, black dress shoes, black socks, and a white shirt. And that's what they will wear for their shifts. For campus rentals and sales and multimedia, it's mostly business casual. I would say for campus rentals and sales, there may be opportunities where more business-focused attire is required. Okay. Here's a question about transferable skills. So what kinds of transferable skills do interns learn in these roles? So I would say for usher services, it's really about customer service and problem solving. And I think those are two really great transferable skills. I think folks who finish the ushers services internship will be well positioned to work in other usher or front of house positions in the cultural sector. They would probably be well positioned to be a front desk manager at a hotel, anywhere that they're working in a shop or an organization where they're selling tickets or a product. It's really about customer service. For the campus rentals and sales, I think the transferable skills really are communication and sales. It's about learning to actively listen to someone and understand what they want or need in a business relationship and figuring out how what your organization has to offer would match well with that. And if there are places where it doesn't match well, coming up with creative solutions alongside your team members. So I think that well positions folks to work in sales at a wide variety of institutions, group sales at a cultural institution, event management or event sales at a performance or event space. So those are the kind of key transferable skills there. In the multimedia position, it's really about digital communications. So for folks that are looking to work in film and video, that are looking to work in social media and in any sort of digital communications, that particular internship is building hard skills and using particular types of software. That's why we mentioned Adobe Premiere and Photoshop, but also learning how to do storytelling and sort of the digital narrative. And that might mean you're not the one creating the story, correct? You're the one that has been, someone else has done the storyboarding and you are the one that's implementing the storyboarding. So it's learning how to provide what the client has asked you to provide. And that's a very transferable skill. And there are lots of roles in digital communications in the cultural sector and further afield. Let's see. Will there also be another presentation after registering? I may need you to say a bit more about that. I think perhaps you're asking about the process. So once folks complete the application, and in order to complete the application, the system will send you an email asking you to upload a resume or CV to a secure folder. That's how we make sure you're completely finished with the application. After that, it's reviewed in-house by the team. Select candidates come in for interviews. We are not able, unfortunately, we don't have staff capacity where we can interview everybody, but there will be some select candidates who come in for interviews. Then, like I said, there will be the eligibility for the program that we'll have to confirm. And then after that, everyone who's part of the hiring team will sort of meet, and then we'll make some offers to folks so that they can make their plans for the spring. Another question here. My friend uses ASL as their primary means of communication. Can they be part of the RKI program? It's an easy one to answer. Yes, absolutely. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this program is open to anyone over the age of 18 who has a documented disability, and the program does have support to provide reasonable accommodation in the workplace to support the learnings and and that's the entire internship. So that's the workshops, that's the on-site working with your supervisor. So wherever there is a need for accommodation or access service, that's something that the program has and is happy to provide. See, there is a question here about the transportation stipend. So I mentioned the transportation stipend. Folks can elect to have up to an additional $200 a month. So it says, what can I use the transportation stipend on? And the answer is really however it is that you need to get to work. We know that this can be something that can provide a barrier to entry for folks with disabilities. And so I think the hope of the transportation stipend is to offset some of that. So folks can use the transportation stipend on gas for their car, parking fees, Uber or Lyft or a taxi. They can use it on riding the metro, the subway here locally, or the bus. It really is a wide variety, however it is that you need to get to work. And also we know that it may change, right? If you're working in usher services and you're working a particular performance that gets out at midnight, even though you often take the subway home, in that particular case, you might feel more comfortable taking an Uber or a Lyft home. And that transportation stipend is intended to help you be able to make the choice that's right for you in that moment. We do not require you to submit receipts or any details on how that money is used. Okay, there is a question here. Can a candidate with a one-to-one due to intellectual disability be paid by candidate? I think the question here is about intellectual disability and sort of supports that are available in the workplace. That is something, and you'll see in the application, we do reserve the right to ask for a job coach to be on site and assist in supporting that. And we have had interns who have participated who have utilized job coaches to make sure that they get up and started. And that's something that we certainly can accommodate. And we might ask for in certain cases. And we can certainly work with the individual to make sure that they're connected to the right types of local services that would help provide funding for that if necessary. And then there's another question here about job coaching and intellectual disability. Does a participant with intellectual disability need to bring a job coach? I think that it is really helpful for a candidate with intellectual disability to have a job coach, especially if there's an individual that they've already worked with in other work placement or job readiness opportunities. I think that provides a sense of security and understanding. Our interns in this program do attend an internship orientation that is provided by our human resources team, and having, an additional set of listening ears and folks to help kind of translate some of that work speak and make sure that everybody understands exactly what is applicable, what's not applicable, is really helpful and beneficial and useful. So that is something that, like I said, we've had interns who have had job coaches before, and we are absolutely welcoming of that and able to support any questions or things that may come up associated. There's a question here about an email address. Yes, that is forthcoming. So once we complete sort of the rest of the questions, you will get a copy of my email address for that. All right. Not seeing any further questions at this point, then I think I will just say thank you so much for attending today's session. We'll drop the link to the RKI webpage and the application in the chat again now. If you have additional questions or concerns, please feel free to contact me by phone at 202-416-8026 or by email wrtaylor@kennedy-center.org. We look forward to receiving your applications by Friday, October 24th. Thank you so much.